you. We will now revert to our usual agenda, and the commission has decided to move one of the items forward on the agenda, and that is item Z23-11012, a rezoning request from R3 Residential Single Family 3 to PUD Planned Unit Development and consideration of the associated Unified Development Plan for the property identified as 4000 West Friendly Avenue, generally described as north of West Friendly Avenue and east of Kemp Road East, 4.4 acres. Mr. Kirkman.
Yes, thank you, Chair Connor. We thought we'd give Mr. Carter a break. He's been up here a little bit. So the subject, again, request this evening is a rezoning request from R3 Residential Single Family to PUD Planned Unit Development. North of the request is currently zoned a combination of R3 and R5 Residential Single Family. East of the request is zoned R5 Residential Single Family, and south and west of the request is zoned R3 Residential Single Family. The subject property currently contains single-family dwellings. North, east, south, and west of the request also contain single-family dwellings. This is an image that shows the western portion of the subject property as it's seen from West Friendly Avenue. This shows the middle portion of the subject property, also seen from West Friendly Avenue, and this is the eastern portion of the subject property, again as seen from West Friendly Avenue. This is an image of a single-family dwelling located north of the request on Tallwood Drive, zoned R3. This is an example of the single-family dwellings located north of the request on Chiswell Court, zoned R5. This is an example of the single-family dwellings that are located east of the request on Bruton Place, zoned R5. These are some of the single-family dwellings located south of the request on West Friendly Avenue, zoned R3. This is a single-family dwelling located west of the request, zoned R3. This is the view facing east on West Friendly Avenue. The subject property here is on your left. This is a view facing west on West Friendly Avenue. The subject property here is located on your right. There were a number of conditions that were submitted by the applicant, and they were advertised as part of this request. In recommending approval of this request, staff notes the comprehensive plan's future built form map currently designates the property as urban central, and the future land use map designates this property as residential. Staff has concluded that the rezoning request does support the comprehensive plans, filling in our framework goal to arrange land uses for a more vibrant and livable Greensboro, and the Creating Great Places goal to expand Greensboro's citywide network of unique neighborhoods, offering residents of all walks of life a variety of quality housing choices. The proposed PUD zoning district as condition allows new residential uses appropriately placed along a major thoroughfare and compatible with adjacent existing residential uses, and does include conditions to limit potential negative impacts on surrounding properties. Again, staff is recommending approval of the request, and I can answer any questions.
Do we have questions? Mr. Kirkman, I do have a few questions.
Yes, ma'am.
For clarification. One is, could you please explain to us, I think there was an adjustment because of a typo, not because of any change, about the buffer planting yard?
Yeah, that's in condition 6, right? Yeah, I'll let
That
Mr.
was there was a landscaping section in the staff report which stated that there would be a 25-foot type B planting yard along adjacent properties. Our ordinance only requires a 15-foot type C planting yard from multifamily to single-family dwellings. So the Unified Development Plan represented the 15-foot. The staff report erroneously stated 25 feet. We just wanted to make that clear that that they would be recognizing the 15-foot buffer.
Thank you. So it was simply, this is just for clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
So we were confused. I do have a few other questions if other commissioners do not. We received a great deal of communication on this, so I just wanted to clarify some general questions that I had after reading a lot of comments.
Okay.
One of them is the limitations of a PUD. I think a lot of people identify PUD with large developments like we have at Adams Farm or at Reedy Fork, but more recently I have seen in some of our rezoning requests PUDs in smaller areas. Is there any guidance?
So the Plan Unit Development zoning tool has been around for a couple of decades, and originally when it was developed for larger developments, like you mentioned, Reedy Fork or Adams Farm, some of those kind of things. However, our ordinance, both with the Unified Development Ordinance and now the current ordinance, also set in provisions to be able to use this tool as an infill development tool. Under the Unified Development Ordinance, there was a planned development infill that was focused just on infill types of development, and that was rolled into several other PUD districts with the current land development ordinance into one PUD zoning district. So there's no minimum size or maximum size for a planned unit development district in our current ordinance. You have to meet the other requirements that get to open space and ensuring compatibility on the edges with setbacks when it's up against single-family residential, as a couple of examples.
I also saw quite a few comments about spot zoning, and I don't believe this is considered spot zoning. Could you clarify that?
I'm gonna actually probably put that one over to our attorney to address that.
Chair O'Connor, I would say that ultimately the question of whether or not it is spot zoning is ancillary to really what matters, because spot zoning is not inherently illegal, okay? There is a law of cases, a string of case law that raises a number of factors that would come into play in considering whether spot zoning would be legal or not. In more recent years, that's actually turned into what is effectively our reasonableness statement, right? What we read from, it's actually from General Statute 160D 605. So that statement of reasonableness is really what matters. Those factors matter regardless, right? That is the inquiry that's really before us, is this rezoning reasonable?
Thank you. Sorry, but I have a lot of questions. I have two others. One is about stormwater. Is that something that we as a zoning commission consider, or does that go under?
Right, so as kind of hinted to earlier with Mr. Peterson's questions, that's an item that's stressed as part of the site plan review process by the technical review committee, and that technical review committee is all of the different departments that deal with development review. So stormwater will be addressed as part of the review from Water Resources, and they have certain factors that they'll look at. Again, the general rule of thumb is that once a development is built, it would not generate additional stormwater beyond what may have existed prior to development. That's the standard they try to work towards, and in many cases, they actually improve the situation.
Thank you. And I have one other question. That is, if you could just explain about how setback is calculated. There was a lot of discussion about setbacks.
Well, there's two different things that are in play. So here we have a plan unit development where the dimensional standards are actually established as part of the zoning district and as part of the unified development plan. There's been some separate questions about the average setback, which would be something that was applied if more than 50% of a block face is developed and you're bringing in new development. But that's kind of the standard development throughout the ordinance. Here, the plan unit development customizes the dimensional requirements, so we would go to the unified development plan for those setback standards.
Thank you. Those are all my questions. Do any other commissioners have questions?
I have a question.
Ms. Maggott?
The mention of this bio retention pond would fall under the stormwater concern?
Yes, right. Again, that would
So
be
that's
addressed as
not
part of the site plan review
So
process.
that's not one of our
Right.
concerns.
Those site development aspects are not really the purview of the commission. Those are going to be addressed by the technical staff if the zoning is approved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Peterson?
Mr. Peterson, could you please use your microphone?
Yeah, it's the microphone's not feeling right.
Type B buffer yards with an average width of 25 feet, a minimum width of 20 feet. Is that from the residents behind?
Yeah, so that was what Mr.
On
Carter was
Tallwood
speaking
Drive?
to, that there was it was a typo. So between multifamily, which is what townhomes would be, for instance, and single family, you do a type C buffer yard on there. Type B is typically going to be used between commercial uses and resident and single family residential. So that's just an error, unfortunately, in the staff report. The conditions in the Unified Development Plan are correct. It just was something that we made a mistake on, unfortunately.
Does that answer your?
Yeah. And one more question. The development on this parcel of land, I see that it's only one entrance and exit onto this property, or Would it be 2?
That is ultimately going to be determined as part of the site plan review process, because we'll have to look at those questions and ensure that there's safe access to and from the site. But that's really a kind of a technical matter as far as that goes. I know there's a conceptual site plan that's part of that, but again, that's illustrative in nature. There's not going to, that won't say this is exactly how it's actually going to be developed. That'll have to be addressed as part of site plan.
It's a T-shaped intersection. And if one entrance comes back, you're gonna have to go right unless you redirect, traffic entirely.
Thank you. Any other questions?
The side buffers on the PUD, what would that be?
Again, those are outlined in the Unified Development Plan.
So is that 15 feet?
Yeah, I believe that's
thank
what
you.
it is said on there. Because that, again, that's customized by this particular zoning district, and that's reflected. I guess the easiest way to think of it is we have standard zoning districts throughout the ordinance. So these R3, R5s we mentioned earlier, they all have dimensional standards standard with that district. The planning and development allows you to customize that for
The Unified Development Plan actually designates a 20-foot perimeter setback along the sides. And then along the northwest of the property, a 30-foot perimeter setback along what is zoned R3, and then what is zoned R5 to the north is a 20-foot perimeter setback.
Would that be in consideration with the other properties that got larger buffer zones, or?
It's not a buffer, it's an actual setback. So it's from the property line to the nearest structure,
Okay. All right.
and that is a minimum.
Thank you. Does that answer your questions? Okay, we don't have, thank you for indulging us. Then we'll proceed to the public hearing. If you would come forward, it's a shared 10 minutes for the applicant. And if you would identify yourself with your name and address before you speak at the podium, please.
Good evening. My name is Bo Rodenbow. My address is 230 North Elm Street, Suite 2000. I appear here tonight as the authorized agent for and on behalf of the applicant, CZS Development Company, an LLC. And I have with me tonight, because I'm technologically challenged, my associate, Jamie Loudermilk, who, those of you who attended the neighborhood meeting last Monday night had an opportunity to see as well. CZS Development Company is a family-owned LLC. It's comprised of the direct and collateral descendants of Chico and Zamira Saba, hence the acronym CZS. The Sabas acquired 3 adjoining acre-and-a-half lots along West Friendly Avenue beginning in the 1970s, on which there were 3 separate single-story homes located. After the Sabas died, their descendants formed CZS and have recombined the 3 lots into a single lot comprising 4.40 acres. The homes have now been demolished in preparation for redevelopment of the property. That has been done with great care so as to preserve the existing trees and shrubbery around the houses as well as on the site. The first slide that we've got here is the sketch plan rendering for the property. As Mr. Kirkman said, there are a number of conditions imposed on this rezoning by the applicant, and these have been the product of discussion with the counsel for the opponents. And I wouldn't say that we've agreed on all of these, but we have discussed all of these at some length. And we have also twice amended our conditions after discussion with the planning staff to make sure that these were concise and clear and easily enforceable by the zoning authorities. You will see that the first condition that we've agreed to on this conditional use PUD rezoning is that there would be no more than 22 townhome dwellings, attached townhome dwellings on separately platted tax lots in a planned unit development that would be subject to a declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions providing for the maintenance by the homeowners association of not only the private street and the common elements in the development, but also of the exterior maintenance and landscaping in the yards for each of the townhome lots. The other condition, and this was mentioned in the questions that were asked of Mr. Kirkman, there is vehicular access solely to West Friendly Avenue. So all of the homes have driveways and two-car garages that empty into the private street on the property, which is in a circular pattern there, as you see, and comes out to a sole point of access onto West Friendly Avenue, which at this point is a T intersection, as Commissioner Peterson pointed out, that this section of Friendly Avenue has a median, and so this is a right-in, right-out only access point for the development. This is a sketch plan of the development showing 22 lots. This is an eclectic mix of townhome styles, some single-family, some single-story, some story and a half, and some two-story, but the zoning conditions require that we have no more than 2 stories on any of these homes and no more than 35 feet in total height. This is the Unified Development Plan that has been amended in response to comments from the TRC. And again, this shows, in response to the questions from Mr. Peterson and Commissioner O'Connor, that we have 20-foot side setbacks to the east, the north, and the west of the property with the adjoining owners, with the one exception that at the northwest corner of the property, there's a 30-foot setback because that portion of the property adjoins the rear of a property that is owned R3. On the north and east sides of the property, generally, that is the village at Windsor Park, which has a zoning density of R5. So those lots are only a 20-foot setback from the adjoining property line. There again is an illustration of the proposed access point into Friendly Avenue, and as Mr. Kirkman said, that is subject to further site planning following the rezoning. The retention device that is shown there, stormwater device that is shown there, again, is illustrative, could be relocated in the course of site planning and so forth. This is an aerial overlay with the Hutchison Court development located in the square in the left-hand corner of the aerial overlay. The property to the east and north is the village at Windsor Park, which, as I said, is a R5 zoned townhome development. And you will notice several things here. There is in this aerial overlay, there is a central courtyard that we're trying to preserve in the center of the property that will be open space, and we hope perhaps to relocate the bioretention cell or the stormwater devices to that area in order to preserve more trees along Friendly Avenue from the location that's shown on the Unified Development Plan. There are also trees along the boundaries of the property that we hope to preserve with this plan, and to supplement in the Type C planting yard more dense plantings of both evergreen trees and shrubs, as well as native grasses and that sort of thing, to buffer this property from the adjoining properties. Again, the village at Windsor Park is shown just to the east and the north of that property, with Bruton Place coming down the east side of the property and Chiswell Court coming in across the north of the property. Now, at the neighborhood meeting last Monday night, I quoted this passage from the Brookings Institute report in 2019 that many single-family neighborhoods could easily yield more housing and more affordable housing if land use rules allowed gentle increases in density, such as townhomes, 2 to 4 family homes, and small scale apartment or condominium buildings. We believe that this development is just such a gentle increase in zoning, going from the current R3 zoning to the next highest zoning density, which is R5, and that zoning density is commensurate with the zoning density for the adjoining village at Windsor Park. We believe that the setbacks are commensurate with that Windsor Park property from the side setbacks, and we believe that the setbacks from Friendly Avenue are also suitable for this property and will enhance the value of the properties adjoining on either side of and to the rear of Hutchison Court, and will at the same time allow for a very gentle increase in zoning density in this property that is going to be consistent with the comprehensive 2040 plan and land use plan that will provide very eclectic and tastefully designed homes that will center on a central courtyard and will in fact enhance the value of the adjoining properties, not detract from the value of the adjoining properties, but will in fact increase the values and be commensurate with providing affordable housing and more accessible housing in this, what has been otherwise a single-family residential neighborhood, at a very gentle increase in density.
Thank you. Are there
All right.
any?
All right, thank you.
You have 3 seconds left. Are there any questions from commissioners? Yes, sir. Mr. Peterson?
Yes, Commissioner Peterson. I visited Tallwood Drive, and I went into the backyard of a residence at 4001 Tallwood Drive, the Epsteins, and I don't get the warm and fuzzy of a 2-story townhouse overlooking my back deck. Now, the reason I asked early on Mr. Kirkman about buffers, and I somewhat measured off what the buffer would be. And 1 level may be fine, but 2-story will overlook directly in the property beside the Epsteins. So the Epsteins will be north of this property in the far north corner, and the property directly behind them looks like I think townhomes 8 through 9 or 8 through 10 would directly overlook anyone who is sitting on a back deck. Now, one of the things we consider when we approving these things, that second item question or statement, we say permitted uses that fit the context of surrounding area. Now, I'm trying to get, how does this fit the context of properties on Tallwood Drive and surrounding that specific area? 2-story townhouse.
Okay, if you're talking about Tollwood Drive, Commissioner Peterson, that is in the subdivision to the northwest corner there. There are no townhomes situated in that northwest corner of the property. And there's a 30-foot buffer there as well, unlike yes. Go to the sketch plan. That'll be the clearest, right? Okay. So Tollwood Drive is coming off a street to the north of Hutchison Court, and the property that you were at is in that far northwest corner, just to the east of the north slash on the sketch plan.
So it will be between 8 and 9?
No, yes, it will be between 8 and 9, so there is no townhome located in that northwest corner.
So there's a townhome that'll be, on 9, right?
That's correct.
And I was in their backyard as well. I didn't get those residents.
Just wanted to remind the commission that this is illustrative at this point, obviously. This still
Right.
has to go through site plan review, so this is not necessarily the final version of this development, but just to keep that in mind as you ask questions.
Just as to how it is compatible with the adjoining neighborhoods, Mr. Peterson, I would say that this plan calls for a mix of single-story, story and a half, and two-story homes, and we believe that the surrounding neighborhoods are also a mix of single-story, story and a half, and two-story homes as well. They are admittedly single-family homes, but there are certainly a number of two-story homes in the surrounding neighborhoods.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Those who are speaking in opposition have a total of 10 minutes. If you would line up so you can get to the podium and introduce yourself with your name and address as you speak. And again, a reminder that it's a combined 10 minutes.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, my name is Steve Freyaldenhoven. I live at 4003 West Friendly Avenue. I'm a principal architect in LS3P Associates, and I've practiced architecture in Greensboro for the past 30 years. I've been asked to speak on behalf of our neighborhood association. The applicant's 3 combined single-family lots entitle him to build 13 new homes with the current zoning, but he is requesting to impose on the neighbors almost double this in density to 22 units for purely financial reasons. Insertion of a 4.4-acre planned unit development in this section of West Friendly disrupts the density of the surrounding neighborhood and is completely out of context with the existing R3 zoning that blankets the area. PUD zoning of this type should be used where it makes more sense, at the fringe areas surrounding activity centers like Friendly Center and Quaker Village. It is in those locations that a denser residential development can be better integrated into the surrounding community and truly promote becoming car optional by reducing the pressure to have multiple cars per household. Friendly Avenue is one of Greensboro's oldest streets, and it has played a significant role in connecting the city with some of its most unique and distinctive neighborhoods like Hamilton Lakes, Hamilton Forest, and Starmount Forest. The Planning Department's vision and the city's investment in West Friendly sidewalks, median plantings between Holden and Westridge Road have helped preserve the unique characteristics not found in any other part of West Friendly Avenue. The 97-foot average setback of homes along this stretch of West Friendly has allowed for growth of an established tree canopy and significant amounts of undisturbed land that is an important part of why West Friendly was established as one of the city's visual corridor overlay districts. The proposed density of 22 units with double garages will require extensive site grading with little opportunity for the applicant's desired statement to save the canopy trees. Minimum building setbacks located in the conditions are not sufficient to provide rear and side yard transitions or satisfactory transitions to the existing scale and density of the adjacent homes. This type of development will require a significant portion of the site to be dedicated to the stormwater control feature, and its proposed location along Friendly Avenue is completely out of character with the neighborhood streetscape, and if permitted, will decrease surrounding property values. Let us look at the possibilities of this site and understand its history and context for greater potential. Let us support collaboration through relationships with meaningful purpose and not assume that it is just another project with cost-benefit rewards for a single developer. We request your vote to deny the rezoning for this proposed planned unit development and to encourage the applicant to understand this property as part of a unique neighborhood and develop a design that more accurately reflects its surrounding context.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nikki Kohut. I live in Old Starmount Forest at 3921 West Friendly Avenue with my husband, 3 boys, and our dog. I've lived in Greensboro my entire life. I have admired the beautiful homes and gracious lots along Friendly Avenue since I was a child, and I'm grateful I'm able to raise my family in one of them. All of the qualities that make the area unique were well thought out in the 1920s. Alfred Scales sought to create a unified community with Hamilton Lakes. The Sternberger family later developed the property and insisted on modest home sizes, large lots, curving streets, streams, and mature trees along Friendly Avenue. This rezoning request by CZS Development will no doubt change the character of our neighborhood, something the city has vowed to protect in its Greensboro 2040 plan. The city's Big Ideas plan states that it seeks to protect and enhance the unique character of every neighborhood, leverage planning and permitting tools to safeguard the environment and historic buildings and places from the potential negative impacts of development and redevelopment. Glenn Drew of CZS Development has shown over the past 6 months he seeks to only profit from the demolition of his deceased family's property. We have asked, but Mr. Drew has repeatedly refused to decrease the density of his proposed twin homes to be consistent with the current R3 zoning that is paramount to the neighborhood's character. Mr. Drew's proposed plan for rezoning would inevitably require a complete razing of the 4.4 acres of his lot for the 22 townhomes, eliminating even more of Friendly Avenue's beloved tree-lined streets. If Mr. Drew has any concern for the area, he would redesign his plans by decreasing the density or develop in a more suitable location. I'm asking the zoning commissioners to vote no on rezoning this property. A no vote will still allow Mr. Drew to build up to 13 single-family homes. This will lessen his impact on our neighborhood, green space, and wildlife. Tonight's decision will forever shape the future of Friendly Avenue, setting precedent for developers to demolish single-family properties in our neighborhoods. How do you aim to preserve our historic neighborhoods and homes? The Big Ideas plan states clearly that Greensboro's historic places are treasured, protected, and contribute to the city's unique identity. Preserving this part of Friendly Avenue is a priority for our neighborhood and the community at large. The Zoning Commission should not disregard and disrespect the will of thousands by siding with a single company trying to cash in on it. Please vote no. Thank you.
In observance of the time limits we have, if you need to express yourself, would appreciate a single clap, no more, so that we can proceed. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Eric Eastet. My wife and I live at 4103 West Friendly, approximately 500 feet west of the property
The time hasn't been restarted.
Mr. Drew acquired from his family. This site is now a single parcel, and the rezoning will only enrich the developer at the expense of the surrounding property owners. I have served the city of Greensboro as a firefighter for the past 10 years. The last 6 of those years have been at Station 49 on West Friendly. I know this territory better than anybody here. Not just every street, cross street, hydrant location, four-way stop, stoplight, and park location. I know the styles of homes, roof types, setbacks, and building materials used for these homes. Let me be perfectly clear. We are not against development. However, what Mr. Drew is proposing changes the entire look and feel of our low-density, single-family home neighborhood and sets a precedent of allowing more dense and inconsistent development into one of the largest and most established areas of stable R3 zoning in the city. The proposed rezoning of this 4-acre property for planned unit development would be the only high-density townhome complex on the 2-mile stretch from Holden to Mears Chapel. This complex is completely inconsistent in several ways when compared with the rest of the unique single-family homes in the neighborhood. Property owners, property owners along West Friendly Avenue have submitted an application for a neighborhood conservation overlay. The planning department determined eligibility and has begun the planning process. It is imperative to set the precedent for this type of rezoning. The neighborhood collected over 1,000 signatures in a petition against CZS's original application for rezoning. Both neighborhood meetings that CZS held were attended by hundreds of residents, and there was zero support for the proposed development. Furthermore, a survey was sent out by the neighborhood with over 250 responses that listed the items most important to the conditions of the development. A majority of those recommendations were not included in any of the developer's proposed design and rezoning presentations. The 2040 plan encourages to protect and enhance the unique character of every neighborhood from the potential negative impacts of development and redevelopment. The proposed complex increases the degree of nonconformity, and it does not fit into any of the surrounding neighborhoods' framework. Reasonable resolutions that still allow Mr. Drew economic return would be to develop compatible single-family homes with a density comparable to Roundtree Court. Even with less acreage than Mr. Drew's property, Roundtree Court has 9 detached, unique single-family homes that host all of the characteristics of our neighborhood. The density of the village at Windsor Park has been mentioned numerous times by CZS's attorneys. While the zoning of the neighborhood is R5, the average lot size is 1/3 of an acre, which is consistent with the surrounding zoning. Worth noting, this is not located on Friendly, nor is there even access from Friendly. While it is within the existing zoning, it is still smaller than most of the lots in the area. This type of density fits in with the suggested gentle density as defined by the Brookings Institute. Mr. Drew's proposed complex is completely inconsistent with our neighborhood. You have the power to set the precedent. Please vote to deny this request for rezoning. I would like to add that the Walks of All Life, he wants $3,000 for rent. That is not Walks of All Life. To show you where our neighborhood stands on this issue, will everyone against Mr. Drew's proposal please stand up?
Thank you. Thank you. Your time is up. We will have 5 minutes of rebuttal time for each side. So the applicant has up to 5 minutes of rebuttal time. When you're ready, if you'd identify yourself again for the record. Thank you.
All right, we're just getting our technology geared up here. Thank you, Commissioner O'Connor. Okay, with respect to the compatibility with the
Could you
adjoining...
identify yourself again? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am Bo Rodenbow, 230 North Elm Street, Suite 2000,
Thank you.
and here for the applicant. With respect to the compatibility with the adjoining Village at Windsor Park, I put up on this slide here the excerpt from the original map for the Village at Windsor Park, and I want to point out with respect to the setbacks from Friendly Avenue that the neighbors are now proposing of a 100-foot setback, that the Village at Windsor Park, when it was platted in 1986, shows a 65-foot minimum building setback from Friendly Avenue, and that is the standard to which the 4 homes along the end of Bruton Place have been built, and those back up to Friendly Avenue. So there's also just down the way in the Benfield subdivision at the corner of Holden Road and Friendly Avenue, those homes that back up to Friendly Avenue are only 70 feet back from Friendly Avenue. So the precedent has already been set for homes on Friendly Avenue that are considerably less than 100 feet back from the right-of-way of Friendly Avenue. With respect to the traffic on Friendly Avenue and this subdivision turning out into Friendly Avenue, I would point out that as cited in the staff report, the transportation classification for West Friendly Avenue is now a major thoroughfare with vehicle counts of upwards of 17,500 vehicles per day. The incremental increase in traffic on Friendly Avenue resulting from this development is so small that no TIS was required under the city's traffic impact study ordinance, and that no trip generation report was required by the staff for this development. Even if you figured there were two cars per townhome, and they made 2 trips in, each of those made 2 trips in and out each day at peak hours and so forth, that would be an addition of 88 trips on Friendly Avenue. So we don't believe there is any negative impact on Friendly Avenue from this development. And as a matter of fact, it may actually have a traffic calming impact because right now you've got 4 successive hidden driveways with the 3 Saba lots and then the Mr. Bunge's house just to the west of the Saba's lots, all of which are shielded by dense vegetation on either side. And so right now, with traffic coming around the corner at Seven Oaks Drive, and it's got a long straight stretch down to Kemp Road West before they hit a stoplight, and we believe that actually the traffic coming out of this subdivision and the entrance statement for the subdivision will actually slow traffic down. Finally, I'd just like to say that if this site is not a candidate under the 2040 growth plan for a gentle increase in density from R3 to R5, then I can't imagine the site in Greensboro that would be such a site.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rubin, did you say you're requesting R5? Because that's not what I'm seeing on here.
The zoning density that we're requesting is 22 units on 4.40 acres, and so that is effectively a zoning density of R5.
You cannot do townhome or twin home on an R5 zoning.
Well, that's the reason we have asked for a PUD rezoning application.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure because
yes.
R5 is a single family designation.
Correct.
Okay.
But I'm talking about the zoning density. This is an R5 zoning density. That is.
It's a 5 unit per acre density.
Right.
You cannot say R5.
Okay.
R5 is a single
okay.
thing. I mean, I will argue this point with you because
okay.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to argue with
yeah,
you.
Yeah. I do have one question for you. As I walk the property, I noticed that there was a chain link fence on the perimeter. Is that owned by CZS or is that owned by the other property owners?
And we don't know the answer to that question, Commissioner Engel. It runs along our survey shows that it runs along the property line, and in some places it's located on the adjoining property owner's line. side of the line, and in some cases, it's on the side of the Sabas.
So we don't know what's going to happen to that fence, other than the fact that it probably is going to stay there? Is that what you're saying, or?
Well, if it's left to us, we will likely take, if it's on our property, we will likely take the fence down and replace it with dense plantings.
Okay.
Thank you. You still have a minute and 14 seconds if
Okay.
you have any further
All
comments.
right. The last thing I'd like to say is that this is a thoughtfully designed zoning request that does meet the requirements of the comprehensive plan as stated by the staff on filling in our framework and creating great spaces and great places. And it does increase the accessibility of lower, slightly higher, gently increased density for the people of Greensboro. So it both addresses the need for additional housing and more accessible housing in Greensboro, and we have made significant concessions to the neighbors in these conditions that we cited. And for example, the statement was made that we had not made any concessions to the neighbors with respect to the density. We did, in fact. Our original request was for a CDRM 8 zoning district, and as a result of our initial meeting with the neighbors and my subsequent conversations with the neighbor's attorney on successive occasions, we reduced that density from 28 units down to 22 units.
Thank
26.
you. Are there any questions? All right, then we have up to 5 minutes for the opposition and rebuttal time. And again, if you'd introduce yourself when you come to the microphone, please.
See that?
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we can see it, yes.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So thank you for indulging us here, commissioners.
If you'd introduce yourself, please.
Sure. My name is Marsh Krause, and I've been hired by about a dozen of the neighbors who are here tonight to provide them with legal representation in connection with this rezoning. I live at 516 Woodlawn Avenue here in Greensboro. In addition to this zoning map we're trying to bring up on the Elmo device here, I actually feel bad. There's about, I understand it, about 150 people out in the lobby, and I was hoping that I could find a way to make you appreciate that, because this is This really is a historic turnout for a rezoning like this. I'm hard pressed. I've been doing this for 25 years. I'm hard pressed to ever remember this big of a turnout. Folks had to wait in line and go through a metal detector. Particularly the ones out in the lobby, you can't even tell there are 150 people out there. But I have a photo, and I don't suppose that's going to work to put that up on here either right now. So if anyone doubts it, though, just take a walk out there. So I'm going to hit on a couple of things, but okay.
I think we heard them.
I think that was the low-tech solution. So it's been said already, but this 4.4-acre tract had 3 homes on it, and the rezoning applicant is entitled as of right to add 10 more. They could have 13 homes, but because they wanted to double that roughly to twice that many, that's why 400 people had to come out here tonight to fight to try to protect the stability of their neighborhood. And again, I recognize everyone who's out here, you're to be commended for your willingness to do that. This is not easy. There have been references to Windsor Park. I'm sorry, this is distracting. No, I appreciate what you're doing there. So there have been references to Windsor Park, and it's the proponents of this rezoning are using it as a justification because they're desperate for something that they can hang on to justify this increase in density. The thing is, it does have an R5 label, but if you look at the lot sizes, you look at the plat map, how it's platted, there are 41 parcels there. So first of all, it's only 41, and it's in a sea of R3 zoning. You have 41 R5 parcels in a sea of R3 zoning. And that's why this zoning map is so instructive. When you look at it, you see it's just this tiny little spot right here that's R5. And they're trying to leverage that and say, well, there's a precedent that's been set. Really not much of a precedent, but it's even less of a precedent when you consider that the average size of those lots, there's 41, and I'll show you the math. I'll hand that out to you before I'm done. Each one of the average lot size of those 41 parcels, I don't know if that's better after all that. But the lot size of the average lot size of those 41 parcels is 0.27756 acres each, meaning that existing density there is actually closer to R3 than it is to R5. So you've got 41 houses with an R5 label, and they're trying to make it sound like a precedent has been set that will affect the fate of hundreds of existing R3 lots. I understand that your job is to follow the comprehensive plan, and it's not really being used completely, though. The staff report mentions filling in our framework and the desire for diverse housing. I think someone already mentioned that these are going to be $3,000 a month rentals. At least that's what the developer is saying. But look what's been left out of the recommendation. Goal B under filling in our framework was left out, which says Greensboro attracts world-class development to transform underutilized sites and buildings into valued assets that complement their surroundings. Complement their surroundings. Those are important words here tonight, folks. And then the second big idea, and we'll talk about big ideas, but the second big idea is creating great places. And you've heard that mentioned in connection with a lot of the rezonings tonight. But what hasn't been mentioned is Goal A, Strategy 1 under creating great places, which is to protect and enhance the unique character of every neighborhood, to leverage planning and permitting tools to safeguard the environment and historic buildings and places from the potential negative impacts of development. So why wasn't that mentioned in the staff report? I think we know why, because it's completely inconsistent with staff's recommendation that you approve this rezoning. Also, no mention of Goal B, Strategy 1, under that big idea, which is to continue to identify and promote the historic fabric of the city. Why wasn't that mentioned? Again, obviously, it's inconsistent with the staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
Did I get my full 5 minutes, or was it being eaten up with the...
No, we waited.
Okay. In summary, we would ask you to deny the requested rezoning tonight, and I thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. One clap. One. Some of you can't count. So, thank you. Do we have any questions? All right, then we are ready for any, since we have no questions, we can close the public hearing without objection. Do we have any comments from the commissioners?
I'm going to go first. This is my home turf. I currently live in Wedgewood. At one point in time, I lived in Hamilton Lakes. I have a business in Guilford College. I'm up and down Friendly Avenue multiple times a day. My feeling is, over the years, and what I visualize, is this is inconsistent with what Friendly Avenue is. I pulled the zoning maps and looked from Green Valley all the way out to Mears Chapel. There's only 3 PUDs that have been zoned in that area, and all 3 of them are at Friendly Shopping Center. That's the point of a PUD. It was designed to be an area where you work, shop, and live. That is not what we've got here at this request. It is totally
We would appreciate it if you would refrain.
It's totally inconsistent with the whole area that stretches from basically Hobbs Road all the way out to Mears Chapel. It's single-family residential. And I agree with Mr. Proust, the R5 in Windsor Park, and I will tell you, I was peripherally involved in some of that when it was designated, and we didn't have a cluster home designation in 1986. So it was a matter of how can we design this and it fit into, we were trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. So R5 worked, but they are single family detached, which, and they're not visible from Friendly Avenue. A lot of these points have been made. This is an inconsistent request for this location, and I cannot support it.
Thank you, Ms. Skeens. Do we have another comment? Mr. Engel?
Yeah, I'll simply say that I will concur with Commissioner Skeens tonight. To me, this is not close enough to an activity center, and that's what I would have liked to have seen for the increase in density that we're looking for here. I'm not comfortable with the buffers. Recently, I planted 3-foot evergreen, in my yard, and I know that's going to take 5 years to grow, 5 to 7. And all those 5 to 7 years, there's going to be headlights going in people's homes. I'm just not comfortable with that. With having walked the property and looked at it, I'm not comfortable with the density here. So I'll be concurring with Commissioner Skeens.
This is Commissioner Maggot.
Yes.
I'd just like to add that I think that the outreach directly to the residents by the applicant's lawyer has been very diminished. As a commission, we always are concerned about outreach and have there been a one-on-one conversation with talking about a concern. We have often certain conditions added so to take care of the residents that live around the surrounding areas. And I don't feel comfortable that that has occurred, so I will be voting against this.
Mr. Downing?
Yes. There's 3 quick things I want to share. I'm going to vote no, of course. But in this particular regard, I'm going to share why. The strategy in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, it says, of course, to protect and enhance the unique character of every neighborhood. This doesn't mean that down the line the neighborhood dynamics will not change, or the sentiments or ideals. But this, and I also want to say the second point, this is not affordable housing. We cannot conflate those definitions. This is not affordable housing, so that is off the table. Number 3, it is reasonable to say that the Friendly Avenue area and the surrounding community is robust. It's a robust community, steering the planning and development growth in various other ways throughout this community. So with that being said, I'm very much convinced because of those who are showing up today, but also those who are in the vestibule area, but also we receive hundreds of emails from you all and communication, all of us, And it's not just that, but you're proving your case, and the literature, the information, and looking at the comprehensive plan. So therefore, I intend to vote no on tonight.
Any other comments? Mr. Gilmer?
Yes, Madam Chair. I too will be voting no on this. I think when I look at development coming into the kind of a middle of another neighborhood, I think this is don't meet the criteria. I think it's not a positive development for the neighborhood, and we can see by the support here. So at this time, I cannot support. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also comment, not to belabor, but I do think that we are in a growth spurt in Greensboro. I'm not totally adverse to adjusting zoning in different neighborhoods so that we can do infill and not continue to sprawl, which I think is the goal of the 2040 plan. However, the density of this particular project and the fact that some of the units will be forward of houses that are long established on Friendly Avenue is especially offensive to me in the way that it would be set. And while the plan that is proposed is just a characterization, it's not necessarily the final plan. I think that there are some shortfalls in it enough to say that I cannot support it. I do think that we need to be mindful of growth, and we need to find ways to adjust. We're talking about accessory dwelling units in various traditional neighborhoods. We're looking at new ways of approaching living, but I just don't think this meets the goal for me, so I will be opposed. I would also like to add, as chair, we appreciate whatever your comments or interests are. We would appreciate having no outburst after we take a vote, because this is business for us and it's not a performance. So I'm sure you understand, and we appreciate that. We appreciate very much the neighborhood involvement and the outreach and the concern. It's been very clear that the neighbors have a sentiment and have pride in where they live and what they do. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that we've had this response. So I thank everyone for that. I don't know if there are any other comments. If not, we'll be looking for a motion first on zoning and then one on the UDP.
I'd be willing to do that. So in regards to agenda item Z-23-11-012, the Greensboro Planning and Zoning Commission believes it is action to recommend denial of the rezoning request for the properties at 4000, 4004, and 4006 West Friendly Avenue from R3 Residential Single Family 3 to PUD Plan Unit Development to be inconsistent with the adopted GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and considers the action taken to be reasonable and in the public interest for the following reason. 1, the request is inconsistent with the Comprehensive Plan's future built form map and future land use map. 2, the proposed PUD zoning district, even as conditioned, does not limit negative impacts on adjacent properties, nor does it permit uses that fit the context of the surrounding area. 3, the request is not reasonable due to the size, physical conditions, and other attributes of the area. It will be a detriment to the neighbors and surrounding community, and denial is in the public interest.
Commissioner Peterson, second.
Thank you, Mr. Engel and Mr. Peterson. Any further comments? Not, we'll take a vote. Mr. Engel?
Aye.
Ms. Skeens?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Downing?
Aye.
Mr. Gilmer?
Aye.
Ms. Magid?
Aye.
So Connor, aye. Mr. Egbert?
Aye.
Ms. Glass?
No.
Zoning denials. Do we need to vote on the UDP considering this vote?
We were just discussing that, and it tracks with the plan, so if this gets appealed to City Council, an action on the Unified Development Plan, which is basically saying it's it's been reviewed and is, if approved, would be appropriate to go with this. So I think we do need to have a separate vote.
I would encourage it, yes.
We do?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, then, do we have comments on the UDP? Ms. Skeens?
All right, council's going to have to enlighten me. We have denied the use and the request. The UDP, by virtue of denial of the request, does not come into play. And you can't approve a UDP if you've denied the use for it.
If council's agreeable, let's just amend the motion to deny and say incorporating inclusive of the Unified Development Plan, and that way it's one motion.
Oh, hold on. I mean,
That would mean we're denying the both.
Correct.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
what, that is what the motion
Yeah.
is in that case.
That's
That's
a
what
good
I'm
thing.
just
so
asking.
basically, I'm just saying, as part of my motion, I'm also,
Right.
well, we've already voted.
Well,
We just take.
you're amending the motion.
Yeah, so you're just amending the previous denial to incorporate.
No
the
matter
unified-
what, we're going to take another vote on this. Can we just
Yes.
say?
Sure.
I would move that we deny the UDP,
Yes.
and let's just do it that
Yeah,
way.
that's fine. Thank you.
Second,
Works for me.
Catherine Mack.
Okay, so we're taking a vote on whether or not to deny the UDP, and a motion's been made to deny it, so an affirmative vote would deny. Mr. Engel?
Aye.
Ms. Skeens?
Aye.
Mr. Peterson?
Aye.
Mr. Downing?
Aye.
Mr. Gilmer?
Aye.
Ms. Maggot?
Aye.
Ms. O'Connor, aye. Mr. Egbert?
Aye.
Ms. Glass?
Aye.
Thank you. Zoning denials constitute final action unless an appeal is submitted in writing to the Planning Department and the appeal fee is paid within 10 days. All zoning appeals will be subject to a public hearing at the Tuesday, December 19th, 2023 City Council meeting. Thank you. We will take a break and reassemble in about 10 or 12 minutes.